All right, welcome back to the Wild Robot Escapes. All right, we know that Roz and Bright Bill, they are on their way from the farm to the island. They've gone through farm country, mountains, cities. They've gone through water. A whale helped them get back to a different shoreline. And now they're in a big city. Can someone explain how Bright Bill and Roz were separated? Zoe?
By a train.
Okay, so Bright Bill said, Mama, get on this train. And I'm going to fly in behind you, and we're going to get to the next city really fast. What happened? Noah?
She got locked out, and then they went to this really big city. And he couldn't find Bright Bill. And then the Ricos came in, and they were trying to find her. But they tried the tracker, but her tracking system was gone. And then after getting, it was like a pigeon, and Bright Bill told her to go into the sewers.
Yes. So Graybeak was the pigeon that we all hoped would be able to help our robot. But what did we find out about Graybeak? Angie?
She died.
Yes, Graybeak is not alive. But they said basically anyone that's a friend of Graybeak is a friend of ours. So we're going to help you anyway. So the new pigeon friend that has kind of taken the lead for the pigeon is named Strutter. Okay, so Strutter is the name of our pigeon. And the last place Strutter sent Roz was into the sewers of the city. And that is all we know. And she did say, my friend is waiting for you and expects you. Noah?
Is Graybeak a pigeon?
Mm-hmm. Yep, but no longer living. Dylan?
I was using my block I got on the table.
Okay, we'll take care of that later. Okay, so today we pick up where we left off when they hop into the sewer. So chapter 77, the underground. Our robot was standing in a long, shadowy tunnel. Murky water trickled along the floor, and sour smells filled the air. Roz was below ground in the city sewers. There was a squeak, and the robot's headlights flashed into a crack on the wall. A rat's pointy face poked out. You must be Roz, said the rat, wiggling his nose. I hear you're in trouble. That is correct, said the robot. I need to get as far from here as possible. I know where to take you, said the rat, and he started scampering down the tunnel. The rat knew the sewers better than anyone, but his short legs couldn't carry him very fast. So Roz carried him. She scooped him up, plopped him on her shoulder, and said, Tell me where to run. With the rat squeaking directions in her ear, Roz stomped deeper into the underground. She splashed down side tunnels, crawled through narrow passageways, carefully crossed subway tracks. Occasionally, they came upon cavernous chambers. Most of the chambers were empty, but some contained jumbles of pipes. The rat would scurry across the damp, dirty floor, while the robot climbed the pipes as if they were trees. Mechanical sounds echoed out from some of the tunnels. Robot crews were hard at work. They spent their lives laboring below the city. Many would never even see the light of day. Roz was curious, of course, but she dared not spy on them. Those workers had no idea that a fellow robot was sneaking through their underground home. After traveling through miles of tunnels, the rat and the robot came to a dead end. A ladder was bolted to the wall and disappeared into a hole in the ceiling. I don't know what you'll find up there, squeaked the rat, but good luck. It cannot be any worse than where I was, said Roz, placing him on the ground. Thank you for your help. The robot gave the rat a quick scratch behind his ears, and then she climbed up to the street. Chapter 78, The Chase. The street was empty. No people walking, no robots working, no automobiles driving. Roz looked at the sky, hoping to see Bright Bill or Strutter. But what she saw was a fleet of white triangular airships. They were floating over the city, searching for the runaway robot, and they had just spotted her. Rosum Unit 7134, do not move. 3 robots zipped down from a ship on cables. They were Rico's 10, 11, and 12. Each held a rifle at his side, but they didn't fire their weapons. Not yet. Their orders were to retrieve the target unharmed, if possible. Our robot's survival instincts blared like sirens in her head, and she burst away from the Ricos. She sprinted down the empty street and turned onto another empty street. All the streets seemed to be empty, but they couldn't be empty for long. More and more big, bulky robots came zipping down to join the chase. The Ricos moved like machines. Their target moved like an animal. The wild robot stayed low, gliding across the streets, darting around buildings, vanishing into shadows. Her computer brain thought back to those games of hide and seek she had played on the farm, but this was no game. Roz never should have gone into that alley. She was halfway through it when Rico's appeared at both ends. There was only one direction to go. Using all the strength in her legs, our robot launched herself high into the air, and she clamped onto the side of a building. Frightened faces peered out from a window. But Roz didn't want to frighten anyone. She just wanted to go home. The robot launched herself up and across the alley and clamped onto the opposite building. Back and forth she went, leaping between the buildings, climbing higher and higher, until she landed on a flat, lofty rooftop. The sky was filled with white airships. All at once, the ships turned toward Roz. Their engines buzzed. The engines buzzed as they closed in on our robot. But then came a strange swishing noise. Pigeons! Hundreds of them! Thousands of them! Wave upon wave of pigeons streamed up from the streets and swarmed around the airships. Strutter had rallied her friends from every corner of the city. They had always hated airships, buzzing loudly, crowding the skies, forcing the birds to fly low. And now, a city's worth of pigeons were finally unleashing their anger. As you'd expect, the airships fought back. Blazing beams of light flickered across the skyline and left charred feathers floating on the breeze. But the pigeons didn't retreat. They tightened around the ships, distracting them, confusing them. There was a deafening screech. Little bodies fell, and a ship spiraled out of sight, leaving a trail of smoke behind it. Roz watched in horror as more pigeons and ships went down. She hollered for the birds to fly away, but they were lost in a fighting frenzy. Heavy feet thumped onto the roof. Rosm Unit 7134, do not move. Roz didn't look. She just ran from the voice, leaped to the next rooftop, and kept on running. Our robot leaped up to a higher rooftop and then down to a lower one. Up and down she went, leaping from building to building, footsteps thundering behind her. But still, the Ricos did not fire their rifles. Mama, I'm here! Brightbill swooped alongside his mother as she ran. What should we do? Brightbill, you must fly to safety, hollered Roz. It is too dangerous up here. And then in a softer voice, the robot said, I cannot escape. No, Mama, you've come so far. Don't give up now. But Roz was finished running. She slowed and stopped at the edge of the rooftop. The goose fluttered into her arms and our friends held each other close. You've been such a good son, said Roz. You've saved my life so many times. But now you must save yourself and go on without me. Will I see you again? Said Brightbill, wiping his eyes. I do not think so, said Roz. They still had so much to say to each other. There simply wasn't any more time. So they said the only words that really mattered. I love you, Mama. I love you, son. Airships circled above. Ricos dropped onto rooftops. Rifles pointed at our robot. A voice boomed. Rosm Unit 7134, do not move. But Roz did move. She heaved her son toward the sky so that he could fly to safety. And in that instant, a trigger was pulled. A blazing beam of light flashed onto our robot's leg. Damage sensors flared as the leg turned bright orange and melted away. Poor Roz tried to keep her balance, but she was already toppling backward, off the roof. She seemed to hang in the air, sparkling in the sunlight, and then she fell, down, 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 to the street below. As Roz was falling, she took one last look at Brightbill, soaring in the sky above. She watched him get smaller and smaller. Then everything suddenly went dark. So I will show you the next page.
It's so interesting. Yes.
Didn't ask us to talk. Chapter 79 is called The Designer. Roz awoke slowly. She was surprised to be waking up at all. The fall from that building should have destroyed her, and yet here she was. But where was she? Everything was dark and silent. Was this where robots go when they die? No. As her systems activated, the real world came into focus. She saw white walls and floors, and she heard the hum of machinery in the background. Roz was somewhere inside the robot factory where she had been made. A pile of robot parts lay on the floor. The parts were smashed and mangled. It took a moment for Roz to realize she was looking down at her own broken body. It took another moment for her to realize she was now nothing more than a robotic head. Her head was sitting atop an electronic box that powered her computer brain. Roz still had her thoughts and her voice, but without a body she couldn't move, so she sat there, completely helpless, and waited for the makers to appear. The makers did not appear. Instead, Roz heard soft footsteps, and an old woman appeared. She was elegant, with white hair and red lipstick and black clothes. Flowery perfume wafted behind her. Every detail about the woman was neat and precise, except for her fingers, which were smudged with dark grease. "Welcome back, Roz," said the woman, wiping her hands on a rag. "I wasn't sure I'd get your computer brain working again. You took quite a spill out there. How do you feel?" Roz just stared. "You don't have to pretend anymore," said the woman. "I know you're not a normal robot. Everyone knows. You made that perfectly clear when you led the Ricos on that wild chase through the city." Roz remained silent. "I watched the video of the chase. I don't know how you got those pigeons to attack our airships, but I'm more interested in the goose. You seem to be speaking with it. Can you explain this to me?" "The goose is my son," said Roz at last. "Is that so?" The woman arched an eyebrow. "Roz, I repaired your computer brain so I could talk with you. I want to know how you came to be this way, so let's talk. I'll begin by introducing myself. My name is Dr. Malavo. A long time ago, I fell in love with computers and robots, and I created a company called Tech Lab Industries. Since then, millions of robots have been produced right here in this factory, and I've designed every last one of them." Dr. Malavo leaned forward. "Roz, I designed you." Chapter 80, The Beautiful Glitch. Deep inside the robot factory, Dr. Malavo was sitting with Roz in Unit 7134. Roz was now just a robotic head, but for the moment, her head was all she needed. The robot and the designer had many questions for each other, and they sat there for hours, having conversations like these. "What happened to you on that island?" said Dr. Malavo. "Tell me everything." The robot told her everything. She described how she awoke on a rocky shore, and how her only desire was to survive, and how difficult life was in that harsh place. "To survive in the wild, I had to become wild," said Roz. "So I studied the wild animals. I mimicked their behavior, and eventually, I learned to speak their language." "Incredible," said Dr. Malavo. "You're programmed to learn different languages, and you're programmed to work with animals. But I never imagined you could learn to speak with animals." "Although I could speak to the animals, they still did not trust me," said Roz. "So I tried to win them over with kindness. Animals ran from me and laughed at me and attacked me, and I always responded with kindness. It was a good strategy. But the real key to my survival came in the form of a gosling. When I adopted Brightbill, everything changed. I was finally accepted by the animals. I was surrounded by friends and family. I was home." "Am I the only wild robot?" said Roz. "I don't know," said Dr. Malavo. "Many defective robots have been returned over the years. It's possible some were like you, until we destroyed them." "Will you destroy me?" The woman sighed. "Roz, people are afraid of you. They saw you fleeing through the city and they think you're dangerous. They want to know the danger is gone. And so, when we're finished speaking, I'll have to destroy you." "I am not dangerous," said the robot. "That part of my programming has never failed. Even if I wanted to be violent, I could not." "Have you ever wanted to be violent?" "No. Every problem has a peaceful solution. Violence is unnecessary." "I wish it were that simple," said Dr. Malavo. "It's an amazing time to be alive, but there is still crime. There are still wars. Sometimes violence is unavoidable." "Is that why you have the Ricos?" said Roz. "The Ricos are designed to do all sorts of unpleasant jobs. Some of those jobs require the use of force." "Do you ever worry they might use force against you?" "The Ricos have never given me a single reason to worry," said Dr. Malavo. "But you have." "How did you escape from Hilltop Farm?" said Dr. Malavo, leaning forward. Roz didn't answer. "Let me guess. The children helped?" Roz just stared. "They're not in any trouble. If I were them, I'd have helped you too." "They are good children," said Roz finally. "And yet you left them." said Dr. Malavo. Leaving was not easy. I care about everyone on Hilltop Farm, and I did my best to look after them all. But I did not belong there. And when the children discovered who I really was, they agreed. They wanted me to go home, so they helped me escape. Why do I fear water? Why am I female? Why was my body designed this way? Why does my computer brain know some things and not others? Why, Dr. Malavo laughed. Why do you need all the answers? You programmed me to learn, said Roz. I am simply trying to learn about myself. The woman shifted in her seat. Those questions are more complicated than you realize. There are countless little considerations that go into designing any robot. I have to determine the robot's size and strength and appearance. I have to give the robot the proper programming and computer brain. I have to predict how people will react to the robot. I have to imagine everything that could possibly go wrong. But all my decisions are guided by a single question. What is the robot's purpose? Quietly, Roz asked her designer, what is my purpose? I'm sorry to disappoint you, Roz, but you don't have some grand purpose. Like all other Rosm robots, you were designed to work for humans, and that's it. The robot thought for a moment. Then she said, I once suggested to a group of wild animals that my purpose might simply be to help others. The designer thought for a moment. Then she said, when you put it that way, your purpose does sound rather grand, doesn't it? How would you feel if someone said you could never go home to your family, asked Roz. Dr. Malavo smirked. Nobody would say that to me. I've spent my whole life creating robots. I never had time for a family. You created me, said Roz. In a way, I am your child and you are my mother. I am not your mother, said Dr. Malavo flatly. I am not your mother, repeated Roz. Those were my very first words to Brightville, but I was wrong. The woman stroked her chin. Up on the rooftop before you fell, what were your very last words to Brightville? I told him I loved him. How do you know your feelings are real, said the woman. How do you know your feelings are real, said the robot. Your brain might be defective, said Dr. Malavo, but it certainly is fascinating. I did not choose to be this way, said Roz, but this is who I am. You'd be wild too if you'd been born and raised in the wilderness. Maybe I am defective. Maybe everything I have experienced is a result of a glitch. But if so, what a beautiful glitch. I have my own thoughts and feelings. I made a life for myself. I have a son. Brightville is somewhere out there right now, wondering if he will ever see his mother again. Dr. Malavo, you do not have to destroy me. You can fix me and I will return to my island and this city will never see me again. I promise. I just want to go home. Please help me. There were tears in Dr. Malavo's eyes. The old woman had heard enough. Without a word, she reached behind Roz's head and pressed the button. Click. And we do have to stop there today.
No.